All right, we'll pick right up where we left off here. I wanted to actually cut in here and unpack a little more about the Kabbalistic meaning of the word Adam, what gets translated as Adam, but just means human being. And so I have here from the Encyclopedia of Jewish Myth, Magic, and Mysticism, which is actually quite a good resource here. Man, now I feel like I gotta wait for everyone to tune back in, because the very people who are asking these questions aren't tuned in yet. So I'll leave it at that. Cliffhanger. Super cliffhanger, you guys. I also want to see if this encyclopedia has another appropriate entry here. Let me see. So I'll start by reading about the book of Genesis and the first word of the book, Bereshit. This is from last week's, but we'll dive right in, pick it back up while we're waiting for people to filter back in. Bereshit, when God created. This first word of the first book of the Bible serves both as the Hebrew name for the book, Genesis, and as an idiom for creation. It's how you say creation, the time of creation. Because of its pride of position at the start of creation, as well as its uniqueness, the word never appears again in the entire scripture, the word Bereshit. The word is subjected to intensive and varied exegetical analysis. Many, many meanings are derived from this one six-letter word. Since the time of Rashi, it has been widely understood that the conventional sequential translation, in the beginning, is inaccurate, and we discussed that last week. Right? Bereshit is a construct, not absolute form. So a temporal, when God began to create, not in the beginning, but like in the beginning of the process of creation, is more accurate. So already on the merely syntactical level, the word has its complexities. But Jewish tradition has also held the 6 layers contain secrets that the wise will understand. For example, by making notarikon, in this case separating the word into 2 words, it yields bere, he created, shit, 6 things. A secret is revealed. 6 critical entities preceded the actual creation of heaven and earth. The throne of glory, positive existence. Torah, the law for the blueprint for existence. The ancestors, which are the righteous pillars that support existence. The concept of the temple, as a gateway or portal between worlds, a link between worlds, and the name of the Messiah. The redemption and the rectification was planned in at the beginning. So although the Torah itself suggests that certain hylic entities coexisted with God at the beginning, water and darkness, which we talked about, the tohu vavohu, by separating out the diacritical dagesh, that's a dot, okay? Hebrew letters can be written with or without a dot. So if you take out this dot from the word and treating it as a metaphysical symbol, the exegete reads it as beginning, be, because the word bereshit, reshit, beginning with a point. This is from the Zohar. This is physics, man. Physics says in the beginning of the universe there was what was called a singularity. So this says bereshit, beginning with a point. The beginning of the universe, the word Genesis, the word that's translated in the beginning, and also as Genesis, it's a loaded word in Hebrew and it gets broken up in the English. But it says in a point, bereshit, in a point. And from this, the Zohar demonstrates the philosophic principle creation from nothing in the first word. The author of the Zohar also finds hints of the Sephirotic structures in the first sentence. Bereshit bara Elohim. With Bereshit, now he's playing word games, he's saying Proverbs 8:22 and 3:18 make Reshit equal to Chokhmah, wisdom. So with wisdom, the infinite, Keter, the subject being implicit in the verb form of bara, created Elohim, Bina. This is deep Kabbalah and a bit of a stretch in my opinion. In a different vein, all Jewish mysticism takes very seriously the caring of God. Kabbalah emphasizes that God is driven by a need to create and relate to that creation. An idea scandalous to rationalist philosophy, which posits that God must be impassive. Rearranging the 6 letters yields a phrase that reveals that creation is ha'ev shir, a song of desire. A ta'ev shir. So this is one thing that, and kind of just while we're waiting for people to trickle in, it looks like we hit 20, so I'll go. The idea that one word here has been played with, I don't know, a dozen different ways, and that's very much the essence of some of this Kabbalah stuff. And so we can get into that. We can get into layers and layers and layers of this stuff. Someone asked, is Sefer Yetzirah a good book to start with? And my answer is that Sefer Yetzirah is not an ideal book to start with here, because the Torah in Hebrew is, you got to start with the source text that everything's going to be derived from. If you're not familiar with Hebrew, all that wouldn't make sense, right? Like, this is the essence of what a lot of the Kabbalah is. And if you leave out the understanding of the Hebrew letters especially, you're missing so much of the heart of it. I do recommend, again, you can check the link in my profile. Just this weekend, I did the Jewish Magic Seminar, and folks seem to be responding really well, agreeing that it presented a lot of the essence of that and the importance of that. So I strongly recommend you check that out. So with that said, I guess we don't have everyone, but we'll kind of pick up where we left off. Speaking of the name, the word that's translated in English as Adam, the name Adam, which just means human, and is mostly the same word as ground or earth in Hebrew. So Adam, which we call Adam Rishon, or the first human. So Adam is the first human being and an archetype for all humanity. One Kabbalistic teaching reveals that the word Adam, which is the letters Aleph, Daled, and Mem, is a mystical abbreviation for the essence of human nature. Here's the whole thing hidden in here. Adama, earth, dibur, speech, maaseh, action. Pause on that note, because if you just kept going, you would have missed it. Adama, ground, earth. Dibur, speech. What is that? That's water mixed with wind is what makes speech. Okay, and action, what is that? Fire. Now we've shown a level deeper. Even when they unpack 2 levels, there's a level deeper that is a practical, magical level. When you read between the lines in a lot of this stuff. Because it had multiple audiences. Let's see, did Cosmic ask me to come in? Oh, he did, and I didn't. Come on in, Doc. Apologies for that, man. Now we're waiting on him. So this whole idea of man being a composite of earth, speech, and action. I don't know if you caught that part, but I'd love to get feedback on that notion.
What's that?
The idea that man, Adam, is a composite of earth, speech, and action.
That's the fundamentals of conjure.
That's the fundamentals of conjure right there. And that is, so I don't know if you caught what I was saying because I was letting you in the room. But the word Adam, they say is Adama, earth, divrei, words, and maaseh, action, deeds.
You know, I heard.
And I'll also say it's pentacles, swords, and wands.
And then I heard it said Adam, mankind, Ha-Adam, the man. And we get the word adamant from that, adamantium from that.
Sure.
diamond, the stone, the red earth, the clay. And it's simply the composite of what we saw all in the first couple of verses of Genesis, of God dividing and separating, dividing and separating. And
it's interesting. It's that tohu vavohu, that mixed up substance, separated and mixed and separated and mixed and separated and mixed, like dough. Like how when you're making dough, you mix all this, you have chaos, you mix it all together, and then you pull it and stretch it and pull it and stretch it, pull it, stretch it, pull it, stretch it. And then at the end, you have a dough. You have a new thing that you've made.
there was something interesting. I remember seeing this supposed time lapse of the universe, this expanding and contraction, and it was said that was representation of the breath of God, Him breathing or exhaling creation, inhaling it back into Himself. But you know something else that came to me yesterday, Moses. That's why I wanted to come on. Was we talked about before about the how we were looking at it as making baths and so on. But what really hit me was that's how we divine. Like sort of like
It's absolutely.
Or like cars. We have our particular cars.
I was thinking about when shuffling.
We shuffle them and then we divvy them out. And we shuffle them, we divvy them out,
Yep.
And
I was thinking about it when I was shuffling the other day. I think about it all the time when I'm working now. I noticed that that is a critical, because it's almost like you're building up friction. You're building up the energy by tearing, like nuclear
fission,
and fusion and fission and fusion and fission and fusion, and you're tearing and mixing, and it's the best way to continually build the energy without dispersing.
And it's a harnessing.
Disperse it. If you would keep gathering, you would solidify it. But by tearing and gathering and tearing and gathering, you're keeping it alive. You're keeping it flowing, and you're adding a little bit each time. I'm getting excited, obviously.
I'm getting stirred up. I'm getting quick, and this is. I don't know who may be letting this go over their head, but that's your own business. But this is the other thing I wanted to say too. Is as we were coming off the cusp of chapter 1, was even to the extent of. I don't think I made a post about this sometime. I might have just went on Facebook or whatever, but about the evening and the morning, the evening and the morning, the evening and the morning, even when you go to gather your things, right? I know the old timers, they would gather stuff in the morning, all right? And what I was told was, the dew had to still be on the grass. And they said that it represented that the breath of God was still on it. All right, that every morning God would breathe life into everything. Everything would go dormant and sleep or whatever during the night, but everything would receive the breath of God. And so the dew was like evidence if you were to blow on something and you get condensation.
Sure.
Right. And there's some verses about that as well, that the dew of the plants or whatever. But you would collect them while there was still dew on it. Right. And then you would go and make your baths or whatever you want to do with it. But that was the prime time, preferably right at sunrise. The breath of God is still on it. The light of the heavens is now heated as well. All these coalescing and corresponding and complementary forces are coming to bear just on the plant kingdom. So I was hearing the evening and the morning. Also, I would say this. In the school of the prophets, they tell us that the evening and the morning is the first day, not the morning and the evening, because God always works in the darkness, and He always works in the unseen. And when we go deeper into the school of the prophet, they tell you about even how this is the alchemical process. The first stage of alchemy is nigreto, or the blackening stage, the darkening stage, the putrefaction stage, where it is in the womb of darkness. All right. David talks about this in Psalms 139. Jeremiah talks about this in chapter 1, that I formed you while you were in the belly. Right? I fashion you together. I stitch you together. Paul talks about being the work of his craftsmanship, or the work of his hands. And that what is so interesting about this is when you are in the darkest part of your life, that is where God is working. He is working in the dungeon, in the deep. He's working in the pit of your despair. It is in the darkness, in the black, in the night. That is where God is active. And the morning just reveals what was going on at night the whole time. You see? And so this is why we use pots. I'm going to go get a little deeper here. Pots and cauldrons and so forth. Normally they're black. When they are covered, they represent the depth, the darkness, the unseen, the unknown. When you baptize certain things, it's beyond the physical eye. It is in that void, all right?
Well, when you bury things, that's what I was thinking.
When you bury things, I was telling this to master class on Sunday. The dirt, everything is in there. All right. The dirt is the dirt is solidified amniotic fluid. Everything comes from the womb and into the tomb. They're the same thing. From the liquid,
substantiated
exactly,
substance thereof.
From the liquid into the, so when you bury something, like you bury it into, we call her Mother Earth. When you open up the womb of the mother, it is void and it's dark. So that's how you get your, it is literally, we see right here in Genesis chapter 1, God brings up out of the earth something, right? He's put something in it, his words. He said, let this come forth, let that come forth, let this be, let that be. So there's something in the earth, in the ground, in the dirt already that he then reconstitutes. It's interesting because in the book of the Maccabees, in the apostolic faith, for example, we don't have a preference for burying or cremation or whatever. And part of this comes from, in the Maccabees, there's a story where they're being threatened. If you don't submit, if you don't do whatever, we'll take you through all these different types of torture. You know, we'll even pull your body limb from limb. And one of the people there said, it doesn't matter. Because I believe at the last day, he will bring my body back together to stand before him. So there is something to be said, even as you're going out in the morning or in the depths of night. Also, the evening and the morning was the first day. Interestingly enough, today, no pun intended, we work from morning to evening. All right. But well, exactly. They work from morning to evening. All right. But we know to work from evening to morning. God is working from night until the day when you're working on your target. Yeah. While they are sleeping, you're working from evening to morning. So this stuff is replete. We haven't even gotten past the second chapter.
We're on chapter 2, sentence 2. That's how far we've gotten. And again, it's a text. If you know how to read it as a textbook on conjure, you don't need any books. You don't need anything else. You just read the textbook. It's all there.
Everybody asks you that. They say, what do you recommend? You know, what's your favorite book on conjure?
What do you recommend for someone who wants to learn conjure?
I say the Bible. Have you read it? You know, it's all in there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was just sentence 1. 2. But this is important. This becomes important on so many levels. And God completed on the seventh day his work that he did, and he abstained on the seventh day from all his work that he did. The Rashi says, Rabbi Shimon said, a human being of flesh and blood who could not exactly know his times and his moments must add from the profane to the holy. That he has to, that a human being, we're lowly, we're whatever, and so we have to add some time to the Sabbath. The Holy One, who is super exact with his timing and his moments, entered the Sabbath like, boom, like within a hairbreadth, it says. And therefore appears as if he completed his work on the Sabbath, meaning like, because it says he completed his work on the seventh day. And then he rested on the seventh day. Right? So why does it say completed? They're saying he brought it not just up to the second, but up to the microsecond before the Sabbath. So when you saw the actual state of completion, it was the seventh day. It goes on further.
By the time you
Another
caught up with
explanation
it, it was the seventh day.
what was the world lacking? Rest. The Sabbath came, and so came rest. That is what made the world complete. The world couldn't be complete. There had been no rest yet. It was active creation. All is constantly in a state of creation, of vitality. And so at the end is rest. And what is rest? Rest is parts of creation. Where does this come to your conjure textbook? Your work is not done when it's done. This is why work gets buried after it's done. This is why work gets put away before being finished. So much of my work, maybe it's because I'm ADHD, but maybe also because the work has to rest. It's not just ready to go fresh out the pen. You don't drop a baby out its mother and be like, good luck out there, kid. It's got to rest. There's got to be time for it to cool, right? You don't even take muffins out the oven, but they have to rest. And the activity of creation has to settle down and settle into place. It's so vital that it needs to come to rest and be stabilized.
I want to speak a word on patience. I want to speak a word on patience. In the school of the prophets, they teach us patience is never about time. It is always about attitude. It is not about the amount of time you've waited. It's the attitude you've maintained while you were waiting. Because you can wait impatiently. You can wait anxiously. You see. And your work, what I hear a lot is people go after where like an AK. It's this and 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 this. And they're looking for more tricks and more spells and more rituals and more tricks and more spells and more. And they are making a mess of it. They haven't given time for the work. There needs to be a Sabbath on your work. All right. And that's where we rest in the, see, interesting, because in the apostolic tradition, our idea of Sabbath is not a day. Okay. It is a response. The idea is that that Sabbath means rest. And the apostolics would tell you, well, what are we resting? We're resting from sin. Well, Christ crucified sin. Therefore, there is an everlasting rest from sin. Meaning that
sin time out permanently.
Exactly. So that is the rest. All right. So it's in a finished work. It's already been done. And your response shows if in fact the work has been done. Because if you're impatient about it, you are still touching that work. Right. Jesus put it this way: unless a seed falls into the ground and die, it cannot produce fruit. We call that hibernation and germination. Some things you have to put out of your mind. All right. The old folks would say, child, take it to the Lord in prayer and leave it there. All right. Right. The elders would say, bury your work and don't look back. Go around a different way. Don't be like.
That's why you don't. And that, by the way, is why you don't look back.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Because when you look back, when you keep worrying, that basic disconnect is the lack of faith. It's the lack of finality.
Yes.
If God went back and touched the work instead of just resting,
he was still working.
It would prove that the work wasn't perfect. When the work's done, it's done. It's done. And let that shit sit. Let it be, because it has to come into its own. So again, how does this apply to your workings? How does this apply to your conjure? When you're working a candle, that candle's not done the second the flame goes out. You got to let that thing cool down and settle. Then you handle it. I don't handle anything right after it's done. I usually let it go overnight before I handle it in anything. I let it set, cool down, then I'll collect it and bury it. If you're making a mojo hand, when you finish it and do that first final feeding, wet it, give it the breath of life, Don't stick it right in your pocket. Leave it on the altar. Overnight, 13 days, 21 days. You always have to let it set. And then you have to wake it up again. That's why you have to wake it up again. Because you have to let it set and come down, settle into its form. Then you can bring it up at a new speed. That speed of being created and of creating is a lot of energy. It's like a microwave. Shit's going to melt. You got to let it set, cool down, then heat it up again a little bit in the oven. Don't put it back in the microwave. And then it'll stay working for you. It won't melt. So that's the idea. I don't literally mean the oven and the microwave, by the way.
But
I'm just talking about the intensity of the energy.
The idea of burnout, imagine if you did not rest.
I imagine that all the
I
time.
know.
But the reason I can is because I observe the Sabbath religiously, pun intended, right? Like you can't get me to work it on the Sabbath. It ain't happening. And now the other thing is that the rest. What does that do rhythmically? If you rest in the seventh, it introduces syncopation. It makes it something living. Resting in the seventh, artistically, when we're talking about the proportions of sacred geometry, there is a lot to this resting in the seventh, this ratio of the active to the resting.
I remember.
I'll say further that just one last point. Pi is 22, the number of the major arcana, divided by what?
7.
So this septenary principle and the one being a rest is really important. And in astrology, the moon is basically a rest. It's not an active energy. And indeed, it's not. It has no force of its own. I'm sorry, I cut you off there, Doc.
No, it's absolutely perfect. In the school of the prophets, there's a time frame where you have to fast once a week. And so that day you go without eating, just giving your body a rest, even from the digestion process. And I found later on that there are health benefits to that, because then your body can metabolize a lot better the other days because they have the time of resting, right? And then, of course, after it became once a week, then you were given license to do it at least once a month. But rest is so necessary. And I will say this about fasting, and I'll knock off on this. Fasting is not just from what you're eating of food.
Well, now I got to read something totally different. Go on, please.
All right. And we talk about this in the school of the prophets, which is fasting is about what you hold fast to, what you let go of, and it is also about what are you consuming. I've mentioned before about when I was younger, my mother would institute Thursdays was a time it was a screen fast. So from sundown on Thursday to sunrise on Friday, all screens were turned off. TV, tablet, computer, cell phone, whatever. Normally, because Thursday is also normally family time anyway. But we fasted from that, right? And this is also interesting, and I want to say this for the emerging prophets out there. You must guard your eyes. Screens are black mirrors. All right. As you are gazing into them, the reverse is also happening. And if you are cozy, if you are a seer, all right, you've got to begin to even have your eyes to fast. Oftentimes, you will see meditations, the closing of the eyes, of fasting from the sense of sight. Right? And it will, like fasting one day of the week, helps your body. Fasting from the sense of sight helps your other senses to become heightened. And the internal...
Absolutely. Resting 1/7 is the whole principle. Resting 1/7. If you work out, you need to rest 1/7. That's a critical... Growth is unsustainable without rest on 1/7 of it. It's what makes all growth sustainable in plants, in the human body, in everything. That is the distilled principle.
If you are,
fasting,
hold on one second.
cutting off fasting. Go ahead.
If you are prophetic, you need to fast from things like gossip, fast from lying, fast from deception. You see what I'm saying? So you can fast not just from what you're putting in your mouth, but what's also coming out of your mouth. What are you taking into your ears? What do you got for me, brother?
On that note, we're jumping way across tradition to my favorite Taoist book here, but fuck it, you're on my live, so you get this stuff from Zhuangzi. This guy goes to see Confucius, and he's like trying to say, what should I do? And Confucius says you have to fast. And the guy goes, well, my family's poor. I don't have any wine to eat or meat for many months. Can this be considered fasting? And Confucius says, that's the fasting you do for a religious sacrifice. It is not the fasting of the mind. Yang Hui said, what is the fasting of the mind? Confucius said, if you merge all your intentions into a singularity, you will come to hear with the mind rather than with the ears. Further, you will come to hear with the vital energy rather than with the mind. For the ears are halted at what they hear. The mind is halted at whatever verifies its preconceptions. But the vital energy is an emptiness, a waiting for the presence of beings. The course alone is what gathers in this emptiness, and is this emptiness that is the fasting of the mind. And I say that to say that if you have a meditative practice, that's meditation in a most perfect description. And meditation itself is a form of fasting of the senses and fasting of the mind. And that is a day of silent meditation is, first of all, harder than a day without food, definitely. And second of all, is really something for just clarity in everything, clarity in divination, clarity in prophecy, clarity in your work, just accuracy in your work. With that said, this is Bible study, right? We're doing Bible? Should we keep doing it? Should we stop it? Just give it up? New book?
Ask the people. I think it's
I'm
in
on the
there.
Bible. No, I'm here to do what I'm here to do, Doc. I'm just having a good time.
I think this is absolutely amazing.
I think so too. Let's see what the people think.
What do you people out there? What do you
People.
think? You people out there.
We're going to take a moment to check in on this. Yeah, are we liking that this is Bible study? I know some people have probably been offended.
The moment you said Bible, anything, the Bible, Moses, the audacity,
the title. Yeah, I know the title is
the unmitigated gall.
So I don't know. I feel like there's blowback in my own personal life for leading a Bible study now. But you know what? That's what we're supposed to do.
Welcome to the company of the prophets.
We're in coyote territory, buddy. V'yavarech Elohim et Yom HaShvi'i v'kadesh oto kivo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim lasot. And God blessed the seventh day, and he hallowed it, for thereon he abstained from all his work that God created to do. That's very awkward phrasing. Going to flip over to the Robert Alter and see how he phrases it. We're on 3. And God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, for on it he had ceased from all his work that he had done. That's a much better translation, much cleaner. Thank you. Some Rashi on this. So when he blessed it, what does it mean? He blessed it, it says, with manna. For on all the days of the week it descended to them in the amount of an omer, which is like a weight, like a biblical weight per person. And on the 6th day, 2 omers descended per person. This is talking about in the time of the desert when the Israelites are receiving manna in the desert. They received a double portion, so they didn't have to gather any and work on the 7th day. And so they're saying that when the word blessed it here means that blessing it with the double portion, and that this verse is written with reference to the future. that God created to do. That phrase at the end, bara Elohim la'asot, which is kind of weird phrasing. The work that was fit to be done on the Sabbath. So he doubled up and did it on Friday. So the idea that, like, there were 7 days of work and he kind of pulled an all-nighter on the sixth one, worked through the daytime till almost sunset again, and then just crashed out at sunset. Called it a day.
Sound like a lot of people I know.
You know, that's where you think I got it from, man. I learned from the back. There's that night you go to sleep at 7:30. That's where I learned it. Okay. Ele toldot ha-shamayim v'ha'aretz b'hibar'am b'yom asot Adonai Elohim eretz v'shamayim. Hold up. Major point here in the Hebrew. Right here. Dalet, Genesis, Bet Dalet, Genesis 2:4. Ele toldot, whatever, Hashamayim of heaven, the ha'aretz and the earth, the hebaram, that they were created, beyom, on the day, asot, that made Adonai. And I say Adonai because that's how I'm trained to read this word, but this is the first appearance of Yud, He, Vav, He. It did not come into being until after the Sabbath. That...
I've heard it said. Oh, go ahead.
So Yud He Vav He, of course, is the Tetragrammaton, the most holy name of God that we don't pronounce. I mean, you're not supposed to pronounce. Some of us have pronounced it sometimes. It didn't come into being until after it included the Sabbath. If you guys check out, again, the Hebrew Magic Seminar that's posted on my profile now, you'll see it. This is part of what we unpack when we start to study the mystery. I've been waiting till this point, till we encountered this particular holy name, because this one's real weird. It's real weird. You guys pronounce it Jehovah, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, that's how you get. It's definitely not a J. First of all, I'll tell you that's you learn that much in the Hebrew folk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no J in Hebrew. There's a soft G, but that's very modern. That didn't exist in the Bible. But so here's the first time we have this name of God. One theory of textualism says this part was written by a different author. That in the editing together and compiling of the various scriptures, this one was written by a different author that used this name. Okay, I actually really like this theory. But there's obviously a more esoteric explanation, because this is the first time that there is a whole world to govern. There is a creation that can create. This is the first time. Because this is the first time that there is a world, right?
So I missed something there. I missed something there. I heard that it was a different author. That was the first theory. What was the next one?
Okay, so the first theory is that, yeah, it's a different author. So they call it, they use different terminology. And that's called the JEPD theory. And I forget what it's called, what the proper name for the theory is. But you can Google JEPD theory. Very interesting theory. But the deeper point is, like, now God's about to start to put things in order. God's about to create weather. God's about to make shit happen. And so the holy name we call upon when we're pronouncing holy names, when we're writing seals, when we're performing Hebrew magic, is entirely connected to this. What sort of work are we doing? Are we creating change in the finished material world? Then this is the name of God that governs that, at that level of operations in the system. The name Elohim, we can say that plaintively for real world stuff. Someone asked me earlier today a really good question, which is, what is the explanation for all this in the face of the Holocaust? Or, he said, in the case of the African religions, the religions of his ancestors, where was the power if these atrocities were allowed to happen? On the one hand, the bullshit surface answer, and it's not bullshit and it's not superficial, it's significant, is that, excuse me, leave a drama note, that evil provokes good to happen. Right? That, what was that quote you said before? That it has to die and the seed go into the earth?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly it. That evil at the end has to happen to bring about a bursting forth of good.
Mm-hmm.
Moses striking the rock, so to speak.
My
The better answer.
Oh, give a better answer.
Technical answer, yeah.
Yes.
A more technical answer for me is that, well, you know, I believe that most of the powerful Hebrew magic left in the time of Solomon, basically at the fall of Solomon, was dispersed and did not follow down on the Judaic days in Israel. That's my main theory. But the other thing is, this shit survived. It survived. It made a seed. Here I am on Instagram with this guy talking about this stuff. If it didn't make a seed from a dying fruit, if it was as common as it was, 85% of the world Jewish population died in the Holocaust. So consider 85% more Jews.
Mm-hmm.
More people would be exposed to this stuff, but there wasn't that exposure. People were curious about it, obviously. So here we are, able to share it, and it's going in all new different directions. This is the birth of a new seed from a dying fruit, and that's my answer to that. That this is not, none of this shit is fucking, what's that thing? Grubhub.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just like, oh, or Tinder. Tinder for miracles. Magic is not Tinder for miracles. You don't get to order it up.
Swipe left.
Yeah, let's do it. That's not how it goes. If it fits into the scheme of things, it fits into the schemes of things.
You know, so this is getting way deep into the School of the Prophets, but because, you know, the School of the Prophets is an esoteric order, and so there's an exoteric theology and there's an esoteric theology.
Right.
So, of course, with Christendom, you have the early church fathers have gone at each other's necks over this for generations, always have. But whence cometh evil has always been the question. I forget which church father posed it that way. And his
documentary hypothesis, by the way. Shout out to a person in chat who looked up the JEPD theory, and this is a documentary hypothesis that tries to crack the Bible code. Whence cometh evil? I'm sorry, Doctor.
No.
It was an opportune time, but I wanted to recognize that.
Whence cometh evil? And if you let them play it out, and I recommend this to all folks. I just recommend the School of the Prophets. Do study theology and the history of theological thought. That's everyone is a theologian. Every person. All theology means is a theory on God. Even your theory that there is no God, you're a theologian. All right.
Yeah.
Everybody has a theory on God, for it, against it, or whatever. So one of the premise is about, well, if whence cometh evil? God's power, God's love. They cannot be mutually sustained and evil continue. The idea is that either God is omnipotent. I think that they use omnipotent and would you use the word compassion just for sake of conversation?
Sure.
Either God is all powerful and
Merciful. Merciful.
I think it's merciful. Either God is all powerful, but not all merciful, or in which case he can or it can annihilate evil, but it doesn't want to. Or God is all merciful, but not all powerful, in which case God desires to eradicate all evil, but doesn't have the means to do so, but it cannot. It doesn't have the power to do so. And so the church fathers, they go back at this, and they go to each other's throats, and they go on and on and on and on and on. And For on one level, it's getting very, 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 very deep. On one level, evil is a perception. And evil is an assumption. It assumes fundamentally, from the human perspective that is, that we know how things should be.
Right.
Therefore, because we know how things should be, we can easily identify a mistake in the plan, that this should not be.
Right. We say this is wrong.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. But we assume we have the basis to say that because we understand the whole thing. So, one of the points brought up in the school of the prophets is that evil is a means to an end. Is a means to an end. There is a perceived evil, and there's an eternal evil, and they're very, very different things. Very, very different things. I say that bringing this back to our text here.
Oh yeah, we're in the book. What do you know? There's a book involved in all this.
Right. Because
World's Slowest Book Club, by the way. Welcome to World's Slowest Book Club, everybody.
Right, exactly. We're not even literally on if you think about the books of the Bible as chapters, we aren't even on the second chapter yet, really.
Yeah.
We're like on the second verse. This part here where it says we were at verse 3, is that right?
We're at 4.
4.
These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created on the day that the Lord God made earth and heaven.
I lost my whole thought then. I guess that's why we can't expose the exoteric to the esoteric.
Did we lose you, Doc?
No, my train of thought was left, which is probably part of my oaths coming forward, saying you shouldn't be talking about that in a public forum anyway. So we're just gonna go ahead and usher this thought right out of your head.
Well, here I'll give you something that probably should. This is where like the first glimpses of Kabbalah I got to see as a kid. So there's an awkwardly Hebrew phrased word. An explanation of that word is that he created them with the letter He. Why? I'll say this as an aside that's not here. The letter He is the letter H, basically. So, the breath of life. With the breath of life, it's saying. So he created them with the letter He. With these two letters, as it is written in Isaiah 26:4, for in Yah, the Lord, Jah, as is typically said, the Lord is the rock of eternity. So in Yah, in that, the spark and the breath is the rock of eternity, is the foundation, is the cornerstone or the foundation stone of eternity, of hanging something on. That metaphysically for the universe, sure, that the breath of God and the spark of God is what makes things have persistence. But I'm talking about when we replicate the acts of God, when we do creation in our work, that it is the spark. If I will not advise anyone to use gunpowder, but when you see people using gunpowder, dangerous people using gunpowder, it is the spark and it is the breath that it's the spark plug that kicks off the engine that allows something to have the sustenance of life. When you die on the operating table, they will blow breath in your body and give you a spark to bring you back to life. It
is the first thing we receive and the last thing we give is the breath. And as Moses was saying there, even while we heat work up, right? I was talking about this in masterclass. We heat work up, give it heat, give it life, give it vitality, make it, the word there is animation, animus, spirit. And further, when we work with gunpowder, it is we lay down loads, charges with fula. It is to send out spirits. You see what I'm saying? It's to give, that you said, that shock value. Even when we build fetishes, I won't get into too many mysteries here, but I will say this: you need something. Even the use of thunderstorms, all right, lightning struck wood, all right, that flash, that spark, that, what's the name of the thing where the lightning strikes the sand?
I don't remember. Tektite, I think.
Tech.
Struck wood.
Yeah.
Is it tektite? I think. I don't know. I just kind of made that up.
Okay. Well, we're gonna market that tactite.
Tektite. That is a thing. I don't know if it's lightning struck sand.
Oh, okay.
It's a
I think it's something with an F. It's like
all right, now I'm gonna look it up.
One of them ites, the Virgo can't let it go. That's the motto right there. Virgo can't let it go. There we go. But all of those things add force and life to your work.
Fulgurite.
Fulgurite. I knew something with an F. Fulgurite.
Fulgurite. Oh
Yeah.
wow, it looks a lot like lightning struck wood. That's actually really funny.
Yeah, it's not Fulgur left. Okay, it's Fulgurite. So make sure you pick it up with your right hand. No, I made that up, but I guarantee somebody's gonna put that on and say there's an old school hoodoo right there. We found some hoodoo delish meme.
Right in the meme. Yep,
Exactly.
2 and 5. Now, no tree of the field, the whole siyach hasadeh terem yihye ba'aretz, the whole eshev hasadeh terem yitzma ki lo himtir Adonai Elohim al haaretz ve'adam ein le'ovod et ha'adamah. So, by the way that the name of God is written here, and the only reason we pronounce it Jehovah is because it has vowels that only one of the letters has vowels under it. The Vav has the O above it and the A beneath it. And usually you read the vowels top to bottom. But the vowels aren't written in the actual scroll. Jesus didn't have it with vowels. Mm-hmm. Right? The vowels are something that were added as a later convention. So how that name's actually pronounced,
nobody knows. Well, nobody knows.
It was lost by the time of the Second Temple.
That's what I heard. That the priest, the high priest, knew the name and how to pronounce it.
It was that was basically his main job. That was what made him specialer than the lower priests. But again, by the Second Temple, they couldn't even do those sacrifices because they didn't remember. So, we do the best we can.
But what we got, and all these words we are giving and saying about the names of things has its place in your conjure notebook. Mm-hmm. Name papers. What are you calling a thing? Even Jesus said, "What is thy name?" There's something to be said. We see here, talk about the name. We see where the man is named. We'll see later on where the woman is named. We'll see further where he names creation, right? Adam was a scientist. He was the first taxonomist, all right? Mm-hmm. He organized and gave things names. He categorized them, right? And this also speaks to another of our larger conversations. Hashtag detoxify challenge.
Oh, sure. Wow, man, you're good at weaving it all together.
That's how my mind works.
That is how your mind works.
Let me tell you what I was told. This may be very, very old school. If it offends anybody, it's on your platform anyway, so I'm just kind of off the hook. When it comes to, when are you ready to date? When are you ready to fall in love and get married and all those kinds of things? Well, they told us as sons of the prophets. This is what my prophet told us. I put it like that. This is not necessarily school, the prophet official doctrine, okay? But he said that there are three things. He said there are 3 steps to this. He said, first of all, the first thing that God gave man was his word. So number 1, you must be a man of principles. That's the first thing. The second thing God gave man was his work. Therefore, you must be a man of purpose. Then, after he was diligent over his word, diligent over his work, He sustained his principles and sustained his purpose. Then, and only then, was he qualified for God to give him a wife or for him to have a partner. All right, back to what we were talking about.
That's good. No, I like that, Jim, too. It's a good mix-in. You like the flavors we combine in this?
Man, this is some good gumbo. I don't care what nobody
we
says.
got some Jewish soul food going on here.
This is good gumbo. I want to say here, all
fried chicken.
All the brothers who are in here, I admonish you as fellow sons of Adam to join in this detoxify challenge. We've got work to do. We're
just alluding to it now. If you want to know more about it, there's one post on my profile. Cosmic shared it. There's certainly more to come. It's going to be a little bit. But when we first talked about the work to be done, you said, I don't think this is going to go anywhere. You were extremely skeptical. 12 hours later, you were convinced.
Well, I'm trying something. I'm working on. There's a principle they told me I need to use. It's called faith. Is what they call it these days.
Oh yeah.
That's what this is. I'm trying some more of that faith stuff. See how this goes.
This is going to be epic, as Cosmic says. So please check that post out and comment. I'm waiting for the discourse to start to build on that, but we'll certainly continue to build it ourselves. All right, where were we at, man? And 5?
And 5. We got to knock off soon.
Man, I got hours tonight. I'm good.
Oh, you got hours in you tonight.
Yeah, last time I had to go do something. This time I'm good.
Oh, you good? Well, see, you should have told me that before. I would have went. I would have went and refreshed and got me some pizza. You know, Taurus, you can't live without pizza for too long. And so now that ought to be gospel. That's the
Virgo can't live without caffeine.
Well, see, we need to do a meme. What the signs can't live without. So this is what we need to do. We need to get back on our. We need to call the John theory. It's get us some good memes going
I'm too old for memes, and you're too old-minded for memes.
This is very true.
We can appreciate them because we're young in spirit.
So, this is what it reads here, and I'll let you read in the Hebrew because there's some things here I want to pick up on. I definitely want to hear the comments as well. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth. There was not a man to till the ground.
We have now no tree of the field was yet on the earth, nor did any herb of the field yet grow, because the Lord God had not brought rain upon the earth, and there was no man to work the soil. This is, however, where now we finally have the commentator address that, by the way, we switched the name of the God we're talking about here. Commentator says, the Lord God here, that the name Elohim means that, which is God, plural, that he is the ruler and judge over the entire world. And so this is defined everywhere according to its simplest meaning, which is Lord, who is a ruler and a judge. So they're basically saying, and this isn't well supported by the text, I think this is obfuscation more than anything else, that the four-letter name of God, since we pronounce it as Adonai, which means Lord, they're just standing in that name because Elohim means ruler and judge, and the Lord is the ruler and judge. So, same thing. That's clearly horseshit.
Right.
And that's the only horseshit I'll wipe out of your guys' eyes. The rest of it I'll leave to be mystified. Because some things, was yet on earth. So every terem in Scripture has the meaning of not yet. And it does not mean before. And it cannot be made into a verb form. So this proves, all right, this is all Hebrew stuff. It doesn't matter. Neither did any herb of the field yet grow, had not yet grown. On the third day where it is written, let earth bring forth, the plants had not yet emerged. They stood at the entrance on the ground until the sixth day, waiting for this. And when you think about it, a seed has a period before the
breaking the soil,
or whatever breaks up, right? That preliminary, again, the rest of the seventh. before the beginning of the next week or of the next cycle. So that's that period that we're talking about.